A mysterious signal emerges. The vastness of the galaxy had always been a source of awe and mystery. Stars flickered in the distance, and countless planets drifted through the infinite void. Yet, despite all the wonders and dangers the universe held, there was something that no one could have prepared for, something that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. It all began with a signal. The United Galactic Council, a powerful alliance of civilizations, had a network of deep space sensors spread across countless star systems. These sensors were designed to detect everything from cosmic anomalies to the slightest disturbances caused by warships or ships in distress. But the signal they received was unlike any they had ever encountered. At first, it seemed like a minor glitch. The sensor team assumed it was just an error in the system. Yet, the signal repeated itself at regular intervals. Something strange was happening, something that couldn't be ignored. A series of coded pulses, sharp and precise, came from the depths of an unexplored region of space. Commander Lyra of the Galactic Council's communication team was the first to spot it. She sat in the darkened control room, staring at her screen with a mixture of curiosity and unease. The signal was brief but clear, not a random burst of energy or static noise, but something calculated. Something that was sent with purpose. Lyra quickly alerted the council, and soon a team of high-ranking officials gathered to discuss the mystery. The signal's origin was traced to a region of space that no one had ventured into in centuries. It was known as the Zaran Nebula, a turbulent and hostile area, known for its dense gas clouds, deadly radiation fields, and unexplored stars. The galaxy's most dangerous and unpredictable beings lurked there, and few had survived its harsh conditions. The Zaran Nebula was considered a forbidden zone, and for a good reason. Despite the danger, the Council knew they had to investigate. The signal's purpose was still a mystery, and the entire galaxy's safety could depend on it. They sent word to the leaders of the different galactic factions, each of whom had their own reasons to fear the unknown and protect their territories. Yet, no one was willing to take responsibility for this unknown signal. Some thought it was just another alien trick. Others feared it was a message from an ancient enemy long thought to be gone. But deep down, every leader in the galaxy knew one thing for sure. The signal was a warning that the galaxy could no longer ignore. Lyra stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over the console. The signal was still there, repeating itself with eerie regularity. It had no apparent origin, no clear coordinates that would mark its location, no ship, no planet, nothing. The only thing they knew for certain was that it was coming from the heart of the Zaran Nebula. What is it? Lyra whispered to herself. Was it a message from an advanced alien species, or was it something else entirely? She ran a quick analysis of the signal, but nothing in the system could explain its meaning. It didn't match any known language, nor did it follow any of the standard transmission codes used by galactic fleets. A sharp beep interrupted her thoughts. A new signal had appeared on her screen. A burst of energy, faint but unmistakable. It was not like the coded pulses. This was different. It was a distorted, static-filled voice. The message was garbled, but Lyra could make out one word: human. Her heart skipped a beat. The word echoed in her mind. Human. It didn't make sense. The humans were not known to have ships or technology that could reach this far into the galaxy, especially not into the dangerous depths of the Zaran Nebula. Humans had only just begun to make a name for themselves among the stars. They were new to galactic politics and still fighting for a place among the older, more established civilizations. But now, somehow, the humans had made their mark on the galaxy. A warship, traveling far from Earth, was in motion, and it was heading straight for the Zaran Nebula. A human warship. It wasn't just any ship. It was a vessel built with the most advanced technology humanity had ever created, a symbol of their strength and determination. Lyra's mind raced as she processed the new information. Why would a human warship be in this part of space? Was it lost? Or was it part of some grand, secret plan? Whatever the truth was, It was clear that the situation was more serious than anyone could have imagined. She quickly relayed the information to the Galactic Council, urging them to take action. The message from the signal was clear. A human warship was on the move, and it was heading straight into the heart of the galaxy's most dangerous and uncharted region. At the same time, the Council began to receive reports from various systems. In the far reaches of the galaxy, alien factions were beginning to take notice. The word was spreading like wildfire. A human warship was on the move, and no one knew what its purpose was. Some saw it as a threat, others as a possible ally. But no one could deny the presence of something new, a force to be reckoned with. As Lyra watched the data stream across her screen, she felt the weight of the situation. The galaxy was about to change forever, and she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever happened next, it would be something that no one could predict. The mysterious signal had emerged, and with it, humanity was now a force to be reckoned with. The silent approach. The discovery of the human warship sent ripples of confusion and fear throughout the galaxy. The Zeren Nebula, with its dangerous terrain and hostile alien inhabitants, was no place for a ship, especially one from a young, growing civilization like humanity. The Galactic Council had never anticipated such an arrival, and now it was clear that something much larger was unfolding. The warship's trajectory was now confirmed. It was heading deeper into the nebula. But what was it doing there? The galaxy had no answers. No transmissions had been received from the human vessel. In fact, there was no contact at all. The ship was completely silent, moving at a steady pace toward an unknown destination, leaving the Council with only questions and growing concerns. Commander Lyra was once again stationed in the Galactic Council's control room. The same crew, now uneasy, observed the blinking lights and the steadily updating data stream. They had tried everything to make contact with the warship. The human ship had not responded to any hails, no matter how many times they tried. It was as if the vessel was deliberately ignoring them, or, even worse, had gone dark. Lyra's mind raced with possibilities. If the ship had been disabled or lost, why hadn't they sent a distress signal? If it had encountered trouble in the nebula, why wasn't there any sign of it? The silence was unnerving. And in space, silence often meant something far worse than mere technical failure. The warship's movements were calculated. It glided through space like an unstoppable force, its trajectory heading straight toward the heart of the nebula, where no ship had ever survived for long. The alien factions monitoring the human ship's movements started to stir. They weren't entirely sure what was going on, but the human presence was undeniable. The Threllian Empire, known for their vast war fleets, quickly gathered their forces. Their ships, sleek and deadly, began moving toward the nebula, as if preparing for a potential conflict. They had always considered humans to be primitive, no threat at all. But something about this warship's mysterious approach made them uneasy. It was unlike anything they had expected. Across the galaxy, other civilizations took notice as well. The Prantis Coalition, a group of traders and peacekeepers, became worried about the possibility of human expansion. The belief had always been that humans, with their primitive technology, could be easily controlled. But now, a warship, a powerful one, was heading into the most dangerous part of the galaxy. The coalition debated fiercely, some suggesting they should meet the humans with an offer of diplomacy, while others feared this was the beginning of a new human campaign for dominance. The truth was, no one knew what the humans wanted. And in that uncertainty, fear grew. Back on Earth, few were aware of what was unfolding in the stars. The warship's mission was a secret, known only to the highest military authorities. It had been built in absolute secrecy, far from the eyes of other galactic powers. The human warship was humanity's ultimate weapon, designed to protect Earth from any and all threats. It was the result of decades of research, a ship capable of defending humanity's future, and possibly much more. Captain Jane Riley, the commander of the warship, was pacing the bridge of her ship. She had long since given the order for silence. No transmissions, no hails, no communication. Her mission was clear: reach the Zeren Nebula and stay undetected, no matter the cost. Riley was a woman of few words, but when she spoke, her crew listened. Her reputation was legendary within the ranks of humanity's military. She was a symbol of strength and determination, qualities humanity would need in the dangerous galaxy they had stepped into. The crew of the warship, composed of the finest humans Earth could muster, followed Riley's orders without question. They knew the mission was vital, perhaps the most important in human history, but the silence weighed heavily on them. They, too, wondered why no contact had been made, why they were not allowed to communicate with the Council or anyone else. But they trusted their captain. If Riley had ordered them to remain silent, there was a reason for it. Riley stood by the observation window, looking out at the stars. The nebula was in sight now, its dark clouds swirling ominously in the distance. It was as if the nebula itself was alive, waiting for something, waiting for them. The crew gathered in their stations, watching the nebula grow larger, feeling the tension building in their bones. "We're almost there," Riley muttered to herself. Her hand hovered over the controls. The moment of truth was coming. Whatever was waiting in the depths of the nebula would soon reveal itself, and Riley knew that the fate of humanity, perhaps the entire galaxy, could be determined by their next move. Back in the Galactic Council's control room, Lyra and her team continued to monitor the human warship's progress. They had been tracking the ship for hours, but now they were running out of time. The nebula was a no-man's land, where only the most powerful ships had ever dared to venture. No one knew what dangers lay inside, but everyone feared what the humans might be walking into. The warship continued its silent journey, and the entire galaxy watched, waiting for the next move. Would it be a sign of peace or the beginning of a war no one was prepared for? As the ship approached the nebula, Commander Lyra felt a knot form in her stomach. Whatever the outcome, one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. Human Commander's secret. As the warship neared the heart of the Zeren Nebula, tension inside the ship's command center reached a fever pitch. The crew, though highly trained and focused, couldn't help but feel the weight of their mission. They had been traveling for weeks, silently cutting through the depths of space, with no communication from anyone, not even from Earth. It was an eerie quiet, and every crew member knew that this mission could change the course of galactic history. Captain Jane Riley stood at the front of the bridge, her sharp eyes scanning the dark expanse of the nebula on the screen before her. Her face was set, hard like stone, but beneath the surface, her mind was racing. She had known from the beginning that this was not just any mission. What they were carrying on board was something far more dangerous, more important, than anyone outside of this ship could possibly understand. In fact, no one, not even most of Earth's leaders, knew the full details of the ship's cargo. Only a small circle of high-ranking officials within the Human Federation were aware of what was aboard the warship. It was the ultimate weapon, a machine capable of wiping out entire fleets, a symbol of humanity's survival. It was the last line of defense. If the galaxy's civilizations turned against Earth, if peace failed, this was humanity's final option. "Status update, Lieutenant," Captain Riley asked, breaking the silence that had settled over the crew. Her voice was calm, though the tension in her eyes betrayed her true thoughts. The ship's navigation officer, Lieutenant Turner, looked up from his console, his face pale with the same weight of realization that had settled on everyone. "Nebula's energy interference is growing stronger, Captain. We'll be entering the dense core of the nebula in 10 minutes. After that, we may lose all external contact." Riley nodded, her fingers lightly tapping the console beside her. "Understood. Keep us steady. We don't want to risk any unnecessary maneuvers." She knew the nebula would distort the ship's sensors and communication signals. It was part of the reason the Council had ordered no contact with anyone. They didn't want their enemies to know they were approaching, especially not with the weapon they were carrying. "What are you thinking, Captain?" First Officer Stevens, who had served alongside Riley through countless missions, asked quietly, his voice carrying the heavy uncertainty that everyone was feeling. Riley turned slowly to face him, her jaw clenched. She had been thinking about the same thing for days. The truth was, she didn't want to come here. No one did. But the mission was clear, and there was no turning back now. "We have no choice," Riley said flatly, almost to herself. "The future of humanity depends on what happens here. If we are to survive, we need to send a message. We can't keep running, hiding in the shadows. This is our chance to prove ourselves." The first officer said nothing, but his expression betrayed his inner turmoil. He knew what she meant. The warship wasn't just a weapon. It was a statement. It was humanity's declaration that they had arrived in the galaxy, not as weak, frightened creatures, but as a force to be reckoned with. Just then, a soft beeping interrupted their conversation. Lieutenant Turner looked down at his console, and his eyes widened. "Captain, we're picking up something." "Strange," he said, his voice trembling slightly. Riley moved quickly, her sharp instincts kicking in. "What's happening?" Turner swallowed nervously. "It's another signal. An energy pulse. But this one is different. It's coming from inside the nebula, right ahead of us." A cold shiver ran down Captain Riley's spine. They had expected to find something. Some kind of danger, some kind of challenge. But they had not expected this. They had assumed the nebula was an uninhabited, deadly region of space. Now it seemed as though something or someone was already waiting for them. "Can you identify it?" Riley asked, her voice steady but with a hint of urgency. "I'm trying, Captain, but the interference, it's like nothing I've ever seen before," Turner replied, his fingers flying across his console. "It's as if the nebula itself is sending out a signal." Riley's mind raced. This was unexpected. The nebula had always been considered a natural phenomenon, a void of destruction. But this was something different. A sign, a warning, or perhaps something even more dangerous. The ship's sensors flashed an alarming signal, indicating a massive energy field was forming ahead. It was unlike anything they had encountered. The nebula was alive with activity now, the once still clouds swirling around them in a violent display of cosmic energy. Something was out there, and it was watching them. "Get ready for anything," Riley ordered, her voice hardening with resolve. This mission just became a lot more complicated. But even as she spoke, she knew deep down that their troubles were just beginning. They weren't just entering the nebula anymore. They were being drawn into something much bigger. Whatever was waiting for them on the other side of the storm, whatever this signal was, it would change everything. The crew began to prepare themselves for whatever awaited them. Riley knew this moment could be the turning point, not just for the warship, but for humanity's place in the galaxy. The ship's weapon might hold the power to defend them. But the question remained, would humanity use it? Or would they be forced to survive without it? Riley stepped to the command console and glanced at the looming nebula outside the viewports. The future of humanity rested on her shoulders, and the secrets buried inside the mysterious signal. With one last deep breath, she whispered under her breath, "Let's see what we're really up against." Alien forces gather. As Captain Riley's warship continued its silent journey through the dense fog of the Zaran Nebula, the galaxy was buzzing with activity. The strange signal from the human warship had not gone unnoticed. It was a spark that set off alarms across numerous star systems, and as word spread, various alien factions began to react. No one knew exactly what was happening within the nebula, but the growing sense of unease was palpable. The unknown was always a threat, and the human's sudden appearance in the heart of one of the galaxy's most dangerous regions could not be ignored. The Threlian Empire, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, was the first to act. Their ships, sleek and deadly, moved swiftly toward the edges of the nebula, their weapons at the ready. The Thrillian leaders were notoriously proud and ruthless, and the sight of a human warship heading into such a perilous area stirred their ancient desire to control and dominate. The Thrillian fleet had long believed that humanity was no more than a minor nuisance, a species with no true claim to galactic power. But the warship's sudden appearance had the Empire's War Council scrambling. What could the humans possibly want in the heart of the Zeren Nebula? Was it a threat or an opportunity? "We can't allow them to make a move we don't control," Emperor Vorik ordered from his command throne. His tone was sharp, and his eyes gleamed with anticipation. The Thrillian Empire had no tolerance for the unknown, and if the humans were foolish enough to stray too far into Thrillian territory, they would deal with it swiftly and decisively. The Thrillian fleet assembled in formation, ready to enter the nebula at a moment's notice. They were not the only ones who had noticed the humans. Farther away in the Koran expanse, the Krull Confederacy was also paying close attention. Unlike the Thrillian Empire, the Krull were a loose coalition of multiple races, united in their goal of maintaining the fragile balance of power in the galaxy. The Krull had been watching humanity's rapid expansion with interest. They had been cautious, waiting for any sign that humans might disrupt the status quo. Now, the sudden appearance of the human warship in the Zeren Nebula raised suspicions. Was this a show of strength, or was it a prelude to something far more dangerous? General Raxel of the Krull fleet, a seasoned tactician, was certain the humans would soon make their intentions known. The Krull Confederacy, though made up of many different species, shared one thing in common. They valued control and order above all else. The unknown, especially the unpredictable behavior of an unknown power like humanity, was something they could not afford to ignore. "Keep a close watch," General Raxel ordered. "If they are preparing for war, we need to be ready to counter it immediately." Across the galaxy, a similar pattern unfolded. The Borthalian Syndicate, a group of ruthless mercenaries and smugglers, also took note of the human warship's movement. The Borthalians had always been opportunistic, ready to exploit any situation for profit, but this warship was different. It was too well equipped and too well organized to be a simple military exercise. The Syndicate spies reported that the human ship was carrying advanced weaponry, far beyond anything the Borthalians had seen from humanity's previous military efforts. Could they be preparing to make a play for dominance? Thark, the leader of the Borthalian Syndicate, asked his council, "Whatever their plan is, we need to be in position to make a profit. The humans may be the new power in this galaxy." Meanwhile, the peaceful Prantis coalition, made up of traders, diplomats, and peacekeepers, took a more cautious approach. The Prantis were known for their neutrality and commitment to keeping the peace in the galaxy, but the sudden appearance of the human warship in such a dangerous area was impossible to ignore. The Prantis leadership sent out calls for a diplomatic solution. Surely, they hoped, humanity did not intend to start a war. "We cannot afford to let the galaxy fall into chaos over a misunderstanding," Ambassador Solara, a representative of the Prantis, said as she called a council meeting. "We must reach out to the humans and find out what they want before any more factions make a move." Despite the tensions that were rising across the galaxy, one thing was certain. The human warship's presence in the Zeren Nebula had triggered a chain reaction. The question was no longer whether the human ship was a threat. It was now about how the galaxy would respond. Would the factions work together to figure out the humans' true purpose, or would their actions escalate into an all-out galactic war? Back aboard the warship, Captain Riley and her crew had no idea of the whirlwind of activity their ship had set into motion. As the ship sailed deeper into the nebula, the crew's focus remained solely on their mission. They had no communications with the outside galaxy, no idea that alien forces were now gathering in response to their movements. Riley stood at the observation window, her gaze fixed on the swirling clouds of gas and radiation outside. The warship had crossed the outer edge of the nebula, and soon they would be venturing into the most dangerous part of it, the very heart where few ships had ever survived. "Steady as she goes, Lieutenant," Riley ordered, her voice calm but determined. Lieutenant Turner nodded, his fingers moving quickly across the control panel. "Aye, Captain. We're nearing the dense core now. The nebula's radiation is getting stronger. We may lose visual contact with the outer systems soon." Captain Riley's eyes narrowed. This was it. The final stretch of the journey. Whatever awaited them in the heart of the nebula would either make or break their mission. But she had no intention of failing. They had come too far, and there was too much at stake. The silent warship moved forward, oblivious to the growing storm that was forming in the galaxy around it. The alien forces were getting closer, and soon, the truth of humanity's presence would be revealed. The galaxy was about to be shaken to its core, and no one could predict what would come next. The truth unveiled. The heart of the Zaran Nebula loomed ahead, a swirling vortex of deadly radiation and dense gas clouds. Captain Riley stood at the helm of the warship, her hand steady on the control panel as the ship navigated through the treacherous path. Outside, the nebula's chaotic energy crackled against the ship's shields, sending jolts of electricity through the air. Riley's crew, too, felt the tension building with every passing minute. They had entered the unknown, and no one knew what awaited them. "Lieutenant Turner, keep an eye on the energy levels," Riley commanded. "We can't afford to lose our shields here." Turner, eyes locked on the readings, nodded grimly. "Aye, Captain. We're holding steady. Radiation interference is increasing, but we're maintaining control." Riley's gaze remained focused on the dark clouds beyond the viewport. Her thoughts, however, were far from the storm outside. The warship's mission was about to take a drastic turn. The truth, the reason they were here, was a secret she could no longer keep hidden. Her crew needed to know what they were really up against. There was no more room for uncertainty. The decision had been made weeks ago. The warship was equipped with humanity's ultimate weapon, something beyond any hope of defense the galaxy had ever seen. And no one, not even the Galactic Council, was fully aware of what that weapon was capable of. Only Riley, a select few military officials, and a handful of high-ranking leaders knew the full extent of what was on board. But now, with the dangers of the nebula closing in, and the alien factions beginning to stir in response to the warship's approach, it was time to unveil the truth. Riley turned to her crew, her eyes sweeping over the tense faces before her. "Listen up," she said, her voice low but firm. "What you're about to hear is classified. It's a matter of survival, not just for us, but for the entire human race." The crew exchanged uncertain glances, but they knew better than to question their captain. Riley had led them through countless challenges before, but this was different. This wasn't just another mission. This was the beginning of something much bigger. "Humanity is in danger," Riley continued, her voice unwavering. "You all know that Earth has enemies. The galaxy's powers have long considered us weak, insignificant. But they've made a mistake. What we have on board this ship is the key to our survival. It's the ultimate weapon. Something that will either secure our future among the stars, or destroy us all." The room fell into an uneasy silence. The crew's hearts raced, but they remained still, waiting for her to explain further. "We've been building this weapon for years in secret," Riley went on. "It's not just a ship, not just a fleet. It's a machine capable of wiping out entire fleets of ships, planets, even star systems. It's an advanced battle system, built with technology far beyond anything the galaxy has seen. It's the only defense we have left if the galaxy turns on us. If the Threlian Empire, the Krull Confederacy, or any of the others decide to attack Earth, this will be our last line of defense." The crew stood frozen, stunned by the revelation. They had suspected the ship was more than just a warship, but this, a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems. The weight of the responsibility was staggering. They were not just carrying humanity's survival, they were carrying its future. "I know what you're thinking," Riley said, her eyes scanning the crew. "This weapon is dangerous, and using it comes with consequences. But we've run out of time. The galaxy has made its judgment on humanity, and soon we'll be face to face with that judgment. We can't back down now." The crew was silent, processing the weight of her words. They knew their mission was important, but now they understood it was far more critical than they could have imagined. The stakes were higher than ever before. If the weapon was deployed, it would change everything, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. "Captain," Lieutenant Turner spoke up, breaking the silence. "What happens if we use this weapon? What's the cost? Will it protect us, or will it destroy us all?" Riley turned to face Turner, her expression serious. "I don't know. That's the risk we're taking. But we don't have a choice. If we don't use it, humanity might not survive the galaxy's reaction. If we do use it, we could ignite a war that no one is prepared for." Her words hung heavy in the air, the reality of their mission setting in. "Get ready," Riley ordered, her voice hardening with resolve. "We're entering the heart of the nebula now. We don't know what's waiting for us, but we'll be ready for it." As the ship continued its journey into the depths of the nebula, Riley's mind was focused on one thing: the future of humanity. They had come so far, but now it was time to make a decision. Would they use the ultimate weapon, or would they find another way? Whatever happened next, it would define everything humanity had worked for, and perhaps even the future of the galaxy. Outside the ship, the nebula swirled with ominous energy, and as the human warship pushed deeper into its core, an unknown force watched from the shadows. The truth was out, and the galaxy was about to find out just what humanity was capable of. First contact. As Captain Riley's warship navigated through the dense clouds of the Zeran Nebula, the crew remained on edge, fully aware that they were crossing into a region of space where no one had ever returned unscathed. The ship's advanced sensors struggled to penetrate the thick radiation surrounding them, leaving them in a near-constant state of uncertainty. Yet, despite the dangers of the nebula, they continued forward with unflinching determination. The time for hesitation had passed. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would soon know it. The atmosphere on the bridge was tense as the crew monitored the unknown energy signatures growing more intense around them. Lieutenant Turner, his face lit by the faint glow of the console screens, glanced nervously at the captain. "Captain, the energy levels are spiking. We're getting something big on the scanners, but it's hard to lock onto." Riley's expression was stone cold as she moved to stand beside him, her gaze fixed on the screen. "What are we looking at, Lieutenant?" Turner swallowed. "It's not a ship, not like anything we've ever seen, but it's definitely a structure. Massive, and it's approaching fast." Before Riley could respond, the ship's communication systems crackled to life. A distorted voice, filled with static, rang through the speakers, sending an icy chill down the crew's spines. "Human warship, why have you come?" The voice was commanding yet distant, with a strange alien cadence that sent a shiver through the crew. Riley motioned for silence, her pulse quickening. This was the moment. First contact. "Identify yourself," Riley demanded, stepping forward, her voice unwavering despite the uncertainty that gripped her. She knew this could be a trap, but she had no choice but to respond. The static cleared momentarily before a deep voice responded, carrying a heavy, otherworldly tone that sent ripples of unease through the crew. "We are the Vretheri, guardians of the Zeran Nebula. You have trespassed into our domain, and we will not tolerate your presence." The words echoed through the bridge, and for a moment, the crew stood frozen, trying to comprehend what they were hearing. Riley's mind raced. The Vretheri were a name that had surfaced in galactic legends, spoken of only in hushed tones among the oldest civilizations. They were known as powerful ancient beings, protectors of the Zeran Nebula and its secrets. But no one had ever claimed to encounter them, and their true nature was a mystery. "We mean you no harm," Riley said carefully, her voice calm but with an underlying tension. "We are humans, from Earth. We are not here to invade. We come in peace." The voice from the Vretheri ship remained cold, almost mocking. Peace. You seek peace while carrying the weapon of destruction. A weapon that could erase entire star systems. Do you think us fools, human? Riley's stomach tightened. They knew. Somehow, they knew about the weapon. You do not understand, Riley replied, her words firm but measured. We are not here to destroy. We are here to survive. The galaxy is dangerous. We seek to protect our world, and we will do whatever is necessary to ensure humanity's future. The silence that followed felt like an eternity. The crew held their breath, waiting for the Vretheri to respond. Suddenly, the ship's sensors blared, a massive blip lighting up on the radar. Something was coming. Fast. You are foolish to believe you can survive the wrath of the Vretheri. The voice rang out again, this time filled with anger. We will not allow you to bring destruction to the galaxy. Prepare yourselves. The communication link was severed abruptly, and the entire ship shook, as if an invisible force had slammed into it. Riley gripped the nearest console, her knuckles white, as she shouted commands. Shields up. All hands to battle stations. She barked. Prepare for impact. The warship jolted again, harder this time, as an enormous shadow loomed on the sensor readout. A massive Vretheri vessel emerged from the swirling nebula, its form dark and menacing against the backdrop of the storm. It was unlike anything the crew had ever seen. A hulking behemoth of energy and metal, its surface crackling with cosmic energy. The Vretheri ship was ancient, its power unfathomable, and it seemed to radiate an aura of untold strength. The crew scrambled, preparing for the worst. But Riley, though her heart raced, stood firm. This was the moment that humanity's fate would be decided. They could not back down. Captain, they're locking onto us. Turner shouted, panic creeping into his voice. Riley's jaw set with iron determination. They won't have the chance. Activate the weapon, she commanded. The crew hesitated, looking to Riley for confirmation. The weapon was humanity's last resort, an ultimate measure of defense, but also a harbinger of immense destruction. If they fired, there would be no turning back. The galaxy would see humanity not as a fledgling species, but as a power that could rival even the ancient forces of the universe. Activate the weapon, Riley repeated, her voice louder this time, filled with the resolve of someone who knew this was their only chance. The ship's engines roared to life, and the massive weapon, hidden deep within the warship, began to charge. The tension on the bridge was unbearable as the crew prepared for what would come next. They had come this far. Now it was time to face the consequences of their actions. Outside, the Vretheri ship loomed closer, its massive energy weapons charging up for a deadly strike. The warship was locked in a deadly dance with an ancient enemy, and it would take every ounce of courage and strength to survive. The first strike was about to be made. The final decision. The standoff between humanity's warship and the massive Vretheri vessel had reached a breaking point. The bridge of the warship was alive with the buzzing hum of energized systems, and every crew member was at their station, fully aware that the fate of humanity rested on the next few moments. The warship had activated its ultimate weapon, the most powerful technology humanity had ever built. It hummed with raw energy, ready to fire. Outside, the Vretheri ship loomed like a towering shadow in the nebula's swirling chaos. Its dark, jagged form crackled with energy, the power of an ancient and mysterious race radiating from every inch of its surface. Every crew member on board the human warship knew that if the weapon was used, it would either annihilate their enemy or trigger a galactic war of unimaginable scale. There was no middle ground. There could be no turning back. Captain, the weapon is fully charged, Lieutenant Turner reported, his voice tight with tension. Riley stood at the command console, her hands gripping the controls with a white-knuckle intensity. Her mind raced. She could almost feel the eyes of the entire galaxy on them, waiting for what would come next. The humans had been underestimated, but now they stood at the edge of a precipice, about to take a step that could reshape everything. She looked around at her crew, young officers, seasoned veterans. Each one of them had risked their lives to get here. They trusted her. They believed in her leadership. But even as she stood there, the weight of the decision was crushing. She wasn't just leading a ship anymore. She was leading humanity's place in the galaxy. Could she pull the trigger? Would it be worth the cost? "What are you thinking, Captain?" First Officer Stevens asked, his voice low and filled with quiet concern. He stood beside her, his gaze fixed on the Vretheri ship, which was now charging its own weapons. A strike was imminent. Riley took a deep breath, steadying herself. "If we fire, we risk everything. If we don't, we risk losing everything." The crew fell silent, each member processing the enormity of her words. In that moment, the galactic tensions, the unknowns, the threats, they all converged into a single point in time. It was humanity's moment of truth. "Captain, the Vretheri are firing," Turner shouted, his voice high with urgency. The warning systems blared, and the warship shook violently as the Vretheri ship unleashed a deadly energy blast. The ship's shields flared brightly, absorbing the full force of the attack, but the energy surge sent shockwaves through the vessel, rattling the crew. The hull groaned under the strain, but it held. "Return fire," Riley commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. The hum of the ultimate weapon reverberated through the ship, and Riley's fingers hovered over the firing controls. She could feel the heat of the energy pulse building, an unstoppable force ready to be unleashed. But just before she gave the order, a thought flashed through her mind, a thought that stopped her in her tracks. "Wait!" The crew turned toward her, confused. The Vretheri ship was moments away from firing again, and they were seconds away from launching their counterstrike. Riley's heart raced, her mind churning as she stared at the dark Vretheri ship outside the viewport. "Captain?" Stevens asked, his voice urgent but filled with hesitation. For a moment, Riley was torn. The weapon was built for moments like this, for survival, for defense. It was meant to protect humanity, not to dominate. But if she fired, the galaxy would forever see humans as a force of destruction, not diplomacy. "We don't have to fight to survive," Riley muttered to herself, her gaze fixed on the massive Vretheri ship. She remembered everything humanity had been through, the struggle, the sacrifices, and the hope that had brought them to this point. Perhaps, just perhaps, there was another way. First Officer Stevens, open a channel to the Vretheri. Now. Stevens blinked in surprise, but quickly followed her orders, activating the communication systems. The bridge fell silent again, as the crew watched Riley make her bold move. The communication link buzzed to life, and the Vretheri's cold, powerful voice filled the room once again. "You are wasting your time, human. You cannot stop what is inevitable. You will fall, just like the others before you." Riley's eyes narrowed. She was done with threats. "I don't want to fight you." The Vretheri ship hesitated for a moment, as if unsure how to respond to this unexpected development. "What do you mean, human?" the voice demanded. "I mean we don't have to destroy each other," Riley said, her voice firm but full of conviction. "We're not here to conquer, but to survive. Humanity wants peace, but we won't let anyone take that away from us. I'm asking you, no, begging you, not to force our hand. The weapon was never meant for war, but it will be used if we have no choice. So I'm asking you to choose peace with us." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Riley's heart raced. Had she just risked everything on a desperate plea for peace? Would the Vretheri see it as weakness? The minutes stretched on. Then, finally, the Vretheri spoke again, their voice softer this time, though still laden with authority. "You would risk everything for a chance at peace. Very well, human. We will not destroy you today. But know this, if you betray our trust, we will not hesitate to end you." Riley's breath escaped in a relieved sigh. The ship's weapons powered down, and the tension in the bridge eased slightly. The Vretheri had agreed, at least for now. "Thank you," Riley whispered to herself, not daring to say it out loud. Her decision had saved humanity, for now. The warship, its massive weapon now silent, turned slowly away from the Vretheri ship and began its journey back toward the outer edges of the nebula. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, but today, humanity had made its first true ally. And as Riley stared out into the starry expanse, she knew the road ahead would not be easy. The price of peace was always steep, and there would be more challenges to come. But humanity had taken its first step into a new future. It was a future they would fight for, not with weapons, but with hope.